I would say now one piece of advice is hard, isn't it? Because I've got about three for them. But the obvious one is just start. I think whatever we're stuck with, if we carry on sort of pontificating and thinking and trying to evaluate what's the best way, that is the same as choosing to say stay stuck. So I would get in the habit of writing, and if it's easier for you, do it in emails or voice record on your phone. Do anything that gets those thoughts out and captures them so that you've got some material to actually engage with.
Writing with authors. We are back and we are going all the way near England to bring on an exceptional author. Helen, thank you so much for joining the community.
Oh, you're ever so welcome. Lovely to be here.
We have a lot of fun things to discuss today, and everyone out there, this will be a preview to a mental health break, so stay tuned. But for today, this is Writing with Authors, the show that interviews writers of all fields to help you along your writing journey, add a new book to your queue, and of course, make an awesome connection. She is the author of bestseller Unstuck, which provides a useful roadmap for career redesign and overcoming obstacles so you can get out of your own way, feel unstuck. Helen, what was the motivation for writing this book?
It's funny. I feel like I've been pregnant with this book for years and years and years and years. And what got me in the end to actually get these ideas out of my head and onto paper and into a book was that I was asked, and it was mainly in lockdown. It's sort of, I was being asked so many times, do you have a book? Do you have a course? Do you have other things other than one-to-one coaching, which is sort of at the heart of what I do? And I didn't. And I'd always been quite reluctant, if I'm honest, to, jump into a course sort of set up and the structure of it. So at that point, it just became undeniable. It got to a point that I couldn't take on any more clients. I felt like, I was very clear people needed the support and I knew I had what would help. So it felt like there was nothing to do. And I very quickly put together, as we all did, I think, in lockdown, so quickly and dirtily did things that, we had to do on our own. So it wasn't very polished, but I did put together a course. And what I noticed was I was creating that and literally calling the sort of online lessons chapters. And before I knew it, there's a book outline, isn't there? So the idea began then, and I must admit, it took me a good couple of years to sort of get round to actually doing anything beyond the online course. But here it is, and yeah, it's amazing that it launched bestseller on Amazon, and it's sort of at the beginning of its life cycle, and I hope helping lots of other people get unstuck.
I love how you touched on some of the more challenging parts. We have all of these ideas in our head, but putting them in an outline, getting them organized, all of these things come into play once you start writing. I'd love for you to hold up the book. Do you have a copy?
I do. I do. I'm prepared. There
All
you go.
right, Unstuck. I love the
Yeah.
cover. That's a whole nother part of the book, right? Coming up with a cover. Walk us through that process.
Yeah, no, isn't it just? And it's interesting because the name Unstuck, the publishers sort of came up with all kinds of ideas that were sort of made very literal good sense of the word unstuck. And I hated all of them, but I hadn't been able to brief them because I'm not very visual or don't think I am. So I didn't know what to direct them to. So actually, this image, if I hold it up, is what changed everything. The idea of somebody moving, they're walking, but they are walking in a circle that is going nowhere. And to me, that metaphorically just chimed with the idea of career stuckness, because generally I'm working with successful people who are smart, who are, certainly in action a lot of the time. They're trying to solve their own career problem,
Sure.
as you would. However, it's not until they notice that actually what they're doing is probably paying attention to the wrong problem because they're stuck, and 6 months or 9 months down the line, having made change, they realize that hasn't actually solved what was important after all. So that stuck in a cycle of solving your career problem just resonated, and the cover came together really quickly. Then it was very painful until then, and then sort of all of a sudden the designers knew what to do, and I loved it. Yeah.
Well, it definitely came out great, and I think a lot of people viewing on today can resonate with that feeling stuck, whether it's in their personal, professional life, all of these areas. Who would you say the target reader is for this book, Helen?
Now, this is going to sound broad and ambitious, but honestly, the book is for anyone who feels less than 100% happy in work that's wrong. And that can be for so many different reasons, right? It might have felt right back in the past. And I talk sometimes about a success trap where people sort of realize 10 or 20 years later that actually now they're not being propelled along with lots of promotions or elevations. They're maybe at the top of their ladder or near it. Is now they're noticing how disconnected they are from what matters, or maybe how promoted away from what used to give them joy. But it can also be people who have lost their role. It can also be people who are struggling to work out, and particularly in the climate as it is now, they've industries are changing, the nature of the roles is changing. So if you're struggling to find your place because of the landscape moving on you, that's the other reason. And the point for me is all these tipping points count. If you find yourself at a career crossroads and you wish you had a formula that would lead you with clarity out of that horrible choice point, then that's what Unstuck does. It sort of distills the whole formula of career redesign into an actionable book.
I love the passion you put into not just a book, but an actionable book, people able to take steps from reading this book. Let's give our readers or viewers right now, potential readers, we should say, a little sneak peek. If they are feeling stuck, what are some things they can start to be doing in the beginning of this getting unstuck phase?
Yeah. So the first act of alignment is where they would start. There are three acts in the book, three acts to purposeful career redesign, but there's a reason that we start with the foundational layers. And it's not always sort of intuitive for people. People want to jump in and solve their problem at speed, right? And that's one way to go. But alignment is making the point that unless you unpack what any career redesign plan needs to align with, you're going to be one of those people who are stuck in the cycle of solving the wrong problem. So alignment is about unpacking your strengths, and lots of careerists and professional people are very fluent at these. They've heard them in appraisals. They know what they're valued for. They also know what comes naturally, but they're not always as happy to own them if their confidence has eroded. So there's getting back in touch with that one, but also values. And that's harder work actually, because they operate under the conscious, and that's not so easy to sort of spot for yourself. And of course, they shift over time as well. So there's that. And then we package it all up with purpose, which is our bridge, if you like, between being quite introspective and then changing gear from inner work to outer work in the act of career redesign that follows.
I love how you touched on values and purpose in life. We're often drawn to these, whether shiny objects or maybe big paychecks, these things that don't necessarily fulfill us, where it may seem like a good idea in the beginning, or at least for me, going back to my corporate days, thinking it was the right fit, unfulfilled, feeling stuck in a circle. I
Mm.
absolutely love that. You mentioned that this book was a little bit work in progress for years, kind of like my first book. I think 4 years it took me, 5 years. Do
Oh,
we have
really?
either a sequel coming or another book coming from you? Because I see the passion here, so I have to ask.
I do have another book in mind, and it's interesting. I think after my own career was redesigned. So after I sort of left career one behind and moved into the world of psychology and positive psychology and leadership coaching, what came afterwards was another layer of narrative therapy. And I think I would like to do there's probably two more books. One is about purposeful leadership. So it's this book, Unstuck, is about the individual who feels less than happy in their work. Purposeful leadership, all the same things apply, I think, and how we foster a culture of purpose is so important in organizations that feels like it definitely deserves a whole book, but also narrative therapy and sort of rebooting. How do we recover from adversity would be another one. So yes, I'm toying with those, but I feel like this baby is a bit too young to sort of get straight on to the next just
Well,
yet.
I look forward to having you back on the show for that next book release. It's going to be exciting. But you did touch on one more thing right there that I'd love to shed some light on before we get your contact info and find out the book. The third part has to do with the mental health side of your life, the career side, that idea. Let's talk more about why that would be a fulfilling project and who you're going to target that at.
Yes, so I think that one will be targeted at now really I'm going to say anyone who has approached adversity in their life. So not just career, although career could count. I think losing your role, you see a lot of identity threat and all the same sort of issues show up there for people, how to navigate when they're in the grips of that kind of fear. But actually, I would want that later book to be more general because I think, we can read quite a bit about post-traumatic growth, but that feels quite extreme and quite inaccessible for people. And I think what's true is we might call it trauma with a small t, but I prefer adversity. That's any setback, any misstep, any fail in relationships, in friendships, in work, in health. It all counts. And again, there is I'm going to struggle to call it a formula, but there are definite tools and strategies to give yourself the support you deserve at times like that.
And the adversity, everyone, it's just a stepping stone in the way. You have to get over that stepping stone to get where you want to go. Remember, it's not forever, it's temporary if you work hard enough. And like we talked about way in the beginning, outlining, making a plan, you'll find a way to get through that. I've had a lot of fun. I've got one more question, though. I'm sorry. If you can give one piece of writing advice to our audience right now who may be in that stuck feeling, but in writing this time, no pun
Yeah.
intended, what can you offer them?
I would say now one piece of advice is hard, isn't it? Because I've got about three for them. But the obvious one is just start. I think whatever we're stuck with, if we carry on sort of pontificating and thinking and trying to evaluate what's the best way, that is the same as choosing to stay stuck. So I would get in the habit of writing, and if it's easier for you, do it in emails or voice record on your phone. Do anything that gets those thoughts out and captures them so that you've got some material to actually engage with. The other piece of advice I'd give is put good people around you. There's no reason to do these sort of struggles when we're stuck of any nature on our own. There are always thought partners and accountability partners to help you if you know that's what you need.
I love it. There may be one name on the book, but there's a lot of people that go into it. Very, very humbly said. If you're watching on, you see me dodging the sun. The sun's coming up through the window, and I'm
Ah.
playing a little game here. But this has been a lot of fun. Everyone, be sure to be on the lookout for about a month from now on this release. We'll have her join a mental health break. If any of this resonated with you, we're going to ask her to please share where the book's found online and also share where we can say hi to you.
So the best place to find the book is my website, because there's a bunch of special offers that you get from going that route. So that's helenhannison.com. I do love connecting with people on LinkedIn. I'll always value real relationships. So that's another place to be in touch if you've got questions.
And I have her name obviously in the description. Add her on LinkedIn. Check out the book online if you are feeling stuck today. Remember, Writing with Authors is exclusively here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe for the next episode if you enjoyed today. Be sure to leave a comment for our guest. And more importantly, check out her amazing book if you feel it is calling you. My name is Vincent A. Lanci. You can search me on social media at that name or my website, vincentalanci.com. The show is brought to you by Coming Alive Podcast Production. Learn more about them at comingalivepodcastproduction.com. But with that, we're signing off just a few miles away from over in England, over here to Florida. Thank you so much, Ellen.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.